A couple of weeks ago, I was just completely stuck on a software engineering task that was pretty tricky. I needed to upgrade a bunch of different packages. And if you see my videos before, you know that I just kind of despise version control and all that stuff. But I kind of kept getting stuck on this task, but I knew that like I was the right person to do it. So I didn't necessarily want to take any of the other engineers on my team's time. So I kind of implemented a strategy that I didn't just, start using last week. I've used this a ton of different times, and it really helps me maintain my productivity as an engineer. And then it also really helps me just prevent fatiguing myself unnecessarily, and kind of allows me to save a lot of mental energy throughout the last handful of years of being a full-time software engineer. So the strategy, it's nothing special. It's nothing game-changing, but it's just task switching. So I start my day every day with the most challenging task of the day. To me, that is very helpful for just getting that task over with and starting the most challenging tasks at the start of the day when I have the most mental capacity for it. I think that's generally a good strategy in of itself. But when I have a task that I know it's going to be tricky, or maybe I'm getting stuck on it a little bit, or I know that it's going to take a longer time, I will start with that task right away in the day. And then once I get stuck, and when I say stuck, I don't mean I just like run into the first small issue, I stop working on it. I'm talking about like I get pretty dang stuck and I'm not able to solve that issue within like 30 or 60 minutes when I get stuck. Or even if that task is just taking a long time and I feel myself getting like very fatigued from working on it, that's when I will switch to a different task for the rest of the day. So ideally, it's like a smaller task that's pretty straightforward, and it's maybe not a task that takes a ton of mental energy. Maybe it's just like a little bit more of a tedious task or something that's pretty straightforward to do. I'll switch to that task for the rest of the day, and then I come back to the more challenging task at the start of the next day when I kind of have a fresh mind and I'm feeling a little bit more ready to work on it. And what this strategy does for me, at least, is it allows me to maintain my productivity really well, because I'm not just staying stuck on this larger task. I'm getting a lot of my other smaller tasks done throughout my work week. So I'm still getting kind of several things done, even though this one task is taking a little bit longer. And number two, and probably the most important one, is that it saves me just a lot of mental fatigue. I'm sure you've been in the situation before, even if you're very new to coding. You get a task and you get stuck on it and you start kind of beating your head against the wall trying to figure it out. And, a few hours go by and it feels like you get nowhere and you just get more and more fatigued. Well, I think it's much better when you start feeling that fatigue build up, switch to something else that's maybe a little bit less mentally fatiguing, and then come back to that other task when you have a fresh mind. And I think that saves a lot of fatigue. And then also, I have found several times to where when I come back to something the following morning, it's almost like a new set of solutions just kind of reveal themselves to me that I wasn't seeing when I was in more of a fatigue state the previous day. So sometimes just coming back to something the next day is really helpful. Now, is this strategy something that you're going to be able to do all the time? Unfortunately not. Sometimes there's a hard deadline for that given task that's pretty tricky, and you kind of just have to power through and do the best you can to get it done as soon as possible, and just kind of accept that those tasks are going to happen from time to time, and you're going to have to accept that to some degree. But for the most part, there's usually not a crazy deadline to where you can't at least do this every once in a while for those tricky tasks. So the TLDR here is that if you have a task that either takes a long time to do or is particularly fatiguing or that you're getting pretty stuck on, sometimes switching to something else for a while, maybe for the rest of your workday, and then coming back to that tricky task with a fresh mind in the next morning can be a really helpful way to keep your productivity nice and high and keep your overall kind of mental fatigue nice and low. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that this helps you out. Let me know if you like videos like this, and I will see you in that next one.